Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of this week's Cloud Go-to-Market Insider. I'm trying to be a cool podcaster this week. I just don't have the cool matching headphones, so if you see me go like this, I'm just trying to be cool as the rest of you. Joining me today is a very special guest, Michael Cooper. Michael, good to see you, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you for the invite. Great to see you, and I think you can pull it off even without the special headphones.
Well, thank you. I do have a nice pair of Hello Kitty headphones next to me that my daughter left, so maybe we'll put those on later.
Now, I'm not sure you're cool enough for those. We'll find out.
This is true. Well, today we're here to talk about the importance of your cloud go-to-market team. But before we do that, I want to ask you a little bit about your experience, because you spent a lot of time leading in this space, both at Citrix, at Microsoft, more recently as Microsoft's Partner of the Year at Confluent, and then kicking this off for Astronomer. So you've, built a ton of successful programs and run them. They've gotten a lot of attention, and with all of that, what are some of the things that you're most proud of?
It's the friends I've made in the industry and the progress we've made together. So the crazy part about our industry is cloud is huge and it touches everything and everyone. But strangely enough, the group of us who kind of do this is a pretty small clique, and everyone seems to know everyone. And so it's been a lot of fun to grow up in this industry, but it's even more fun to grow up with some really great people and watch them go on to do some incredibly successful things. So so a lot of the presidents of companies and the rest are folks that we were just having beers with. That doesn't seem like that long ago. And so it's fun to watch the industry grow. It's fun to watch the people around us grow. And it's fun to see everyone have the success that they're having. Yeah.
And it's interesting because we always think about big tech and you think about this huge landscape, but it's really not. It's really a kind of small community. And you're right. It's neat to see those folks that you spent time with, messing around as a sales rep, or maybe you were in operations or something. And then everybody kind of moves up and you get a little bit more serious, but you've always got those fun times in your back pocket. So,
and it's also crazy to see how often it's actually pretty well deserved. All of us, like to take shots at the guys on the top or the girls on the top. But as I see a lot of my, friends find success, it's crazy to me how much of them is you go, well, you know what, that makes sense. They're amazing. Oh, well, that makes sense. Wow, I wonder why it took so long. So, it's especially lately, it really seems to be happening to the people who deserve it. And so I'm really happy to see it all happening.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for making time to do this today. We are going to spend a little bit of time going through the need for a cloud go-to-market team, as well as alliances and kind of the importance there. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions and get your feedback, and then hopefully we'll wrap it up with enough time to go and enjoy some downtime this weekend. So first, can you quickly summarize the importance of your vision for like a ideal cloud go-to-market team and alliances in today's market?
Now, in today's market especially, things have changed in terms of what ideal go-to-market team looks like. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe even last year, it was pretty common to have a standalone team who just sold to and with the cloud teams. That is simply not a sustainable model anymore. If the core sales teams are not actively engaging with the cloud providers, then you're at a significant disadvantage to your peers, and you're probably going to be roadkill. If a customer is using your product on a cloud, you can't ignore that cloud anymore. You can't just say, well, hey, listen, I'm here, and we're just touching EC2. Amazon knows you're there. You're either working with them or you're not. And if you're working with them, you have a chance of becoming more and more relevant to the customer. If you're not working with Amazon, then you're kind of instantly becoming not long-term relevant to the customer. And so the ideal team is someone who is engaged from engineering to support. Everybody knows who at the cloud provider is their peer, who at the cloud provider they're reaching out to and working with. And so it is a well-orchestrated team, and the traditional role of a standalone sales team is no longer there. Now the traditional, an ideal alliance is well integrated and is running that quarterbacking role of helping people connect, but is not the person who's doing the connecting.
That makes sense. And we're starting to see a lot of that in some of the like very successful ISVs at this point. And where we see folks struggle at scale is because they haven't quite aligned that way yet, or maybe they're fragmented in part of it. And so that kind of leads me into the next question a little bit. Is everybody puts a lot of importance, and I do as well, on having an executive alignment, but is that enough?
It simply is not. And one of the most common mistakes I see a lot of organizations make, especially, you know, in the OSS space, where, you know, you've got, you know, give example of, you know, what we were doing at Confluent with Apache Kafka, one of the fastest growing open source projects out there. You know, 900-pound gorilla, the clouds need to pay attention to us, right? Well, no, they don't. And so you can have all the executive alignment that you want. You can have a nice and sexy, you know, project that everybody is interested in, but you still have to have the fundamentals done right. And you still have to build on the fundamentals of, you have to get your operations done. You have to get your co-sell deals registered. You have to be ensuring your reps are talking to their reps. You need to get the process going. And once you have the process going, now that's when the executive alignment actually can dramatically accelerate, and you'll see some amazing things happen. When I got to Confluent, for example, I mean, the executives were talking, but nothing was really happening. It not until we got, you know, all of the deals registered, the salespeople talking, you know, break down the walls of my sellers and get them to actually open up and talk to the cloud providers, you know, do lots of conversations with the cloud sellers to get them to a point to where they actually even know who we are. So all of that basic work, once you've got that going, then the executive alignment dramatically accelerates. But doing the executive alignment without the work produces almost nothing, or doing the work without the executive alignment makes life so much harder. So incredibly important, but you cannot overlook the fact that you still have to do all the hard work of the partnership before there's true value there.
Yeah. Step one, build and execute on that plan, on your go-to-market plan. And, you know, at the same time, obviously you want to have that executive alignment going. But without one, you're kind of lost without the other. So I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the kind of overarching theme here, but when it comes down to the actual team itself, when you think about a cloud go-to-market team, who are you thinking about as far as maybe it's alliances, maybe it's ops, like what roles are you thinking about, and how do they contribute to a successful strategy?
Now, you'll see the roles of the alliance change slightly depending on where the partner team reports into. So if the partner team reports into the CEO, which is where I think the partner team should, then the roles that are spread out there is you'll have one person kind of focused on the executives and the overall relationship. You'll have one person focused on the sales, and they may even carry a number, and they're responsible for driving co-sell motions and with it. And sometimes that person has a fairly large co-sell team. I don't think that's the right way anymore. I do think sellers should be working for the CRO, but either way. So if partner is working for the CEO, then you have your alliance, you have your overall alliance and executive lead, your sales lead. You also need a technical and product engineering lead. And that's one of the ones that gets missed the most. And one of the primary reasons I think partner should be working for CEO. Now, if you see partner working for the CEO, then the role you don't normally have then is that engineering and product integration lead. And I just can't overestimate how important that is. And so just co-selling together is interesting, but where things really get, you know, where you really start to see significant leverage from your relationship with the clouds is when your customers perceive you're building things together. And when your customer perceives that your company and Microsoft, or your company and Amazon, are building solutions together to make things, you know, to make their life better down the road, so that you're part of their long-term vision. And that's how you get to prove to that company that you're strategic. And a good chunk of that is not just the sales motions and what I'm doing for you today. It's having that engineering, it's having that roadmap, it's having that long-term vision. And that's one of the things I see missed most because a lot of times partners working for the CRO, and the CRO isn't going to pay for an engineering headcount that's, Horizon 3 type work. They're going to be looking at, hey, if it's going to be this quarter or the next quarter, and then engineering is responsible for themselves. And traditionally, the engineers are just not very good at working well with the engineering team on the other side. You need someone from the partner team to translate, to soothe the egos, to drive things forward, to be paying attention. Otherwise, all of the conversations that happen are just purely reactive, and nothing strategic ever happens. And so, long answer to your question, but what does that structure look like? The structure is very different depending on if the partner team reports to CEO versus CRO. I argue for CEO because, again, I think managing the engineering relationships is incredibly important.
Yeah. It's important to make sure you have that step, right? Because if you don't, and your product is just one piece of the puzzle and you have no build, then slowly over time, your competition's going to fill in that spot as well. So you've always got to keep your eye on, as a leader, you want to make sure that your customers are being served in the best manner possible. And if your product is the inferior product and your competitors are building with the Google or the Microsoft or the Amazons, and you've got that gap, that's a gap you quickly need to fill, or you're going to have to start backpedaling and dealing with some renewal issues there. So definitely important.
And it also dramatically helps in sales. And so one of my most common issues I would face whenever I'm selling with my product on any of the clouds is, hey, why do I need this when I can do this with a first party service? And you would just immediately offer to the customer, well, hey, our engineering teams work together on a regular basis. We have a weekly meeting. We're always looking for feedback. So would you like to have a meeting with my engineering team and Microsoft, or my engineering team and AWS? Because they're looking for feedback from customers like you who want to look things forward. That helped. I used it on a regular basis in my sales pitches. It helped almost every time I made the pitch, and I only had like 2 customers that are actually say, yes, I want to have that meeting. Almost all the rest of them say, oh, well, okay. So if you guys are doing it together, then I'm sure this is going to be fine. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. So it just breaks down that barrier so rapidly. But it also leads to long-term relationships, because the 2 customers that called me out on it were 2 of the largest banks in the world, and they're very, very good customers to this day.
That's awesome. So I know we talked, we've kind of got to lay the land for why this is important, but I want to ask you now to talk a little bit more on some of the actual activities that this team should be focusing on. So we talked about some of those activities, specifically like with the product and engineering teams and how they should be meeting and planning and building roadmaps. But as far as the rest of the team is concerned, what should they be focusing on? And then how does alliances play a part in that?
Great question. And I think there's, all the obvious ones, and, the executive alignments and the pairing and making sure you have QBRs and making sure your QBRs are meaningful and you're doing a work week schedule, and all of that's important. What I see a lot of people make a mistake on is they focus in on the big flashy fun things, and they forget the basics. And the basics are, registering your product within the cloud partners tools, reporting your wins and losses in those cloud partner tools, doing the just day-to-day grind to make that happen. On the Microsoft, for example, they actually audit you on your wins and losses, and the audit process is painful. So doing all the work, the day-to-day grind is a necessary evil. Then if you're not doing that, then the rest of it just doesn't matter. And so there's so many great partnerships out there that are being underreported to the cloud providers in terms of the value that the company is providing to the cloud provider, and the cloud providers has lots and lots of partners. And so if you're not turning their metrics green and they're not doing the basics, then the rest of it doesn't matter. And so not to overemphasize, but it's the basics that you have to get done, and that team has to devote 30 to 40% of their time every day to do the basics, which is going through your sales tools and figuring out all the deals that impact all your clouds and other partners while you're there, getting those registered, get the information from your sales teams about why this is there and which cloud it's going to and when it's going to land, reporting that into the cloud teams. Even if the cloud teams didn't necessarily help with that deal, you just have to just do that grind day in and day out And then when you're done with that 30-40%, which is a lot of work and no one particularly enjoys it, then you get to go worry about the bigger stuff and the QBRs and the executive meetings and, you know, selling to the new large, you know, UBSs and Wells Fargos or Walmarts of the year, of the day. But if the team is not taking care of the basics, then the rest of what you're doing is just not nonsense and noise.
I like that you called out the busy work, because I see often a lot of people skip like reporting on their PRACAR, reporting on their consumption, whether direct or indirect, sharing those wins. Obviously, you got to build the framework to get to those wins first, with doing co-sell properly, making introductions, following up, those types of things. But we often see folks miss the like, you need to share what you're doing well and share it often. And that's busy. It takes operational resources. Sometimes it takes engineering or product resources to build things into your product to enable you to do that. But I'm glad you called that out, because I definitely agree that's a very valuable space. And
the company you work for has actually got some interesting tools coming out that are actually trying to help that. So one of the things that we were investing with at Tackle, and we're just starting to turn on, is tools to help automate that. There's a couple of other tools out there too. I will definitively tell you there is no easy button there. There is no, hey, this is just going to happen, and I'm just going to automate it or tie it into Salesforce and automatically flow through. None of that happens. You do have to just go do the busy work. But there are some great tools out there, Tackle being one of them, that will try and help that. And one of the things it's also kind of just weird is how many of the deals, once you start actually trying to report it all, how many deals you'll notice that you miss. It's surprising how many deals happen and how many deals affect the cloud providers, and how many times that happens without you actually noticing that they're there. So
awesome, thank you. So I want to move us towards like here's what I could do today. Looking at future trends, what advice would you provide for startups today or businesses looking to build out their cloud go-to-market team and alliances? Like, what are the 3 big takeaways, if you had 3, that you'd say, hey, these are the things I want you to go think about and that you should do? And then kind of what trends do you see on the horizon that support some of that?
The first one I think we've covered pretty well. But it's the most important, so I want to get into more detail, which is you just need to build the basics and assume that your team needs to be working and selling with the cloud providers, and you need to be doing that from day one. And don't assume that that's the partner team. Don't assume that, okay, if I need help or if the deal goes south, then we'll talk to the cloud providers. If you're not talking to the cloud providers, you're just going to be roadkill. You're going to be less and less significant in those deals, and more of your deals you're going to think you almost had, and then suddenly they just kind of go away on you because you actually didn't know everything that's going in that customer account when the cloud provider does. But if you go, the top 3 things you should be doing. So 1, do the basics, get the process in place. 2, it's marketplace. If you're not working well with the marketplaces, and working well with the marketplaces no longer means I have an offer in the marketplace. Working well with the marketplace means that your company actually has a bias or a preference of, I'm going to put my deals through marketplace unless I just can't otherwise. And so ensuring that your sales reps are paid equally, ensuring that you have a bias towards, hey, Mr. Customer, let's put this through the marketplace. There are a lot of reasons for that. One, most of the larger companies out there, from AT&T and the rest, have mandated they're not allowing new vendors to come in. And so the easiest way for a new company to come in is to come in via marketplace, just so you don't have to set up the vendor relations. Also just reduction in spend. But 3, which is the most important, which is just strategically the right place to be. When you sell in marketplace, you get a win with your cloud provider, you get a win with your customer, you get tied into the customer's existing cloud spend, and it starts to force your organization to do correct things, which is automatic billing on an automated basis, allowing your customer to pay as you go, and overages just automatically hit the thing. So all of the things that are hard to do for startups, if you do marketplace correctly, it forces you to do that. And I think there's an emerging trend in marketplaces too, where a lot of the resell will actually be happening through Marketplace. And so as a new startup, instead of building your own resale channels, just correctly build your infrastructure, your offer into AWS Marketplace and into Microsoft and Google Marketplace, and then allow CDW or Software One or Accenture, whoever you want to resell with, just to resell you through the Marketplace. Dramatically accelerates your routes to markets, dramatically accelerates what's going on, but more importantly, it's what the customer is going to start to expect and demand. And so, be there first and you have an advantage, be there last, or build it later when you need it and you're just playing catch up. So Marketplace is a necessary evil. You have to be there, plan for it now, plan to be aggressive in it, and plan to be, proactive with it, because, if you're going to spend the same amount of work to do it anyway, you might as well do it now and get credit for being early.
We've talked about a lot today. I'm going to kind of break it down for everybody just as a recap, and I'll send this out as well. Part of this will be in the blog that comes out on Monday, so you'll see a lot of what Michael had talked about in there. But we talked about the importance of the go-to-market team and alliances in today's market. And so essentially making sure that you've got a top-down structure throughout the organization as well. So we've got product, engineering, alliances, operations, sales, all on the same page. Michael talked about the importance of making sure we align that partnership to the CEO as a best practice. We talked about executive alignment, and it's not enough to just have it. You have to have that plan and execution alongside. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck somewhere in that scale motion. We talked about the various roles that are important. And we talked about, Michael's top 3 things here that he just mentioned. So Marketplace, again, making sure you have the fundamentals done and you spend the time on those fundamentals and you get that right. So Michael, thank you. This is super helpful. I always love chatting with you. Look forward to having more of these. If anybody wants to talk to Michael, learn more from him and his expertise, or just ask him a question, maybe you want to take him out and pick his brain over dinner or some drinks, feel free to reach out to him, reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in touch with him. And that's all for today's very special session with Michael Cooper on the importance of cloud go-to-market teams and alliances. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.